CBS enforced stringent regulations regarding the editing of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. Each moment underwent meticulous scrutiny. Every single word was subjected to examination. However, on September 17, 1967, an element managed to evade detection. The censors overlooked it. The director failed to notice it. Even the siblings remained unaware until after the fact. Amid the Who's performance, the camera unintentionally recorded an object in the backdrop. An object which verified what many had assumed but lacked evidence to substantiate. The narrative of the Smothers Brothers commenced with heartbreak. Their father, Major Thomas B. Smothers, Jr., served as an Army officer. In 1941, during the Second World War, he was stationed in the Philippines. When Japanese forces attacked, his spouse Ruth and their children were evacuated. Major Smothers was taken prisoner. He endured the horrific Bataan Death March. Subsequently, he was transferred to Fukuoka No. 22, a severe penitentiary camp in Japan. By April 1945, as the conflict neared its conclusion, he was too ill to labor. On April 25, he was relocated from Fukuoka to Korea. He never completed the journey. Certain accounts state he received a burial at sea. Others indicate he was cremated in Korea. Out of the 110 men transferred alongside him, a mere 36 lived. Major Smothers was the final casualty. Ruth was left to single-handedly raise Tom, born in 1937, and Dick, born in 1938. They were reared in California while their mother worked extensive hours. Existence was difficult, and that anguish influenced their comedic craft for many subsequent years. That comedy initially gained traction in 1959 at the Purple Onion, a diminutive venue in San Francisco. The brothers were initially scheduled for only 2 weeks, but their popularity was such that their engagement extended to 36 weeks. Spectators adored their peculiar combination of folk music and humorous tales. One evening, a flamenco dancer was hurt. Tom and Dick were compelled to substitute for her. That impromptu showcase demonstrated to all their unique talent. By the conclusion of their residency, they were earning $2,000 weekly. Merely months prior, they had been making $2 per night. Their debut record, The Smothers Brothers at the Purple Onion, was launched in 1961. It catapulted their profession. Long before the Purple Onion, they performed in an ensemble Tom established in college. It was named the Casual Quintet. Tom performed on guitar. Dick learned the bass specifically to join him. The other members departed one by one, but Tom and Dick persisted. They began narrating jokes between songs to occupy time. That was the authentic genesis of their signature style. They realized audiences chuckled at their fraternal ribbing as much as they enjoyed the melodies. That sibling teasing evolved into their hallmark. On stage, Tom portrayed the naive one. Dick enacted the stern brother. They bickered, and in front of the audience, Tom would declare, "Mom always liked you best," and the crowd would erupt. It was not fabricated. It was simply their genuine dynamic. That authentic sentiment endowed their comedy with a palpable honesty. By the mid-1960s, they had an opportunity to expand their reach further. CBS was being soundly defeated by NBC's Bonanza on Sunday evenings. Bonanza was attracting a quarter of all American television viewers. It had already vanquished 2 other CBS successes, The Gary Moore Show and Perry Mason. CBS resolved to attempt something audacious. They aimed to attract a younger demographic. They hoped the Smothers Brothers could achieve it. Tom and Dick were amusing, intelligent, and unconventional. CBS hoped they could assist the network in regaining a trendy image. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour debuted on February 5, 1967. Superficially, it resembled a standard variety program. Ed Sullivan presented them as typical American youths, but within a few installments, it became evident they were anything but typical. They jested about the Vietnam War. They ridiculed politicians. They discussed substantive issues. Their comedy was incisive and courageous. Each week they tested limits and audiences adored it. Within a fortnight, they surpassed Bonanza in the ratings. Younger viewers tuned in. Advertisers were delighted. Tom had requested complete creative authority before commencing. CBS consented due to their desperation for a hit. That agreement granted the brothers the liberty to express their desired content. They invited folk singers like Pete Seeger, who performed anti-war songs. They mocked President Johnson on national television. Every episode felt unexpected. Every episode felt precarious. CBS censors opposed them at every juncture. The brothers retaliated, frequently incorporating the censorship itself into the program. The writing staff was as bold as the hosts. Young comedy writers like Steve Martin, Rob Reiner, Lorne Michaels, and David Steinberg all commenced their careers there. They crafted jokes with significance. They shattered conventional television norms. Many proceeded to transform American comedy permanently. Their work influenced programs like Saturday Night Live, All in the Family, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. In 1968, an unforeseen event occurred on American television. On October 6th, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour broadcast the Beatles' promotional film for Hey Jude. Just weeks earlier, on September 8th, individuals in the UK had already viewed it. But this was the inaugural occasion Americans could witness this format of film. At that time, they were not termed music videos. They were designated promotional films. The Beatles had filmed Hey Jude at Twickenham Studios on September 4th. Paul McCartney personally designed the set. A large orchestra attired in white tuxedos accompanied. There were also 300 extras who collectively sang the finale. Ringo Starr had recently rejoined the group after a brief departure. Thus, this was more than merely a song, it was a significant event for them. That was not all. The subsequent week, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour presented Revolution. 2 Beatles videos consecutively provided American audiences a novel way to experience the band. Other programs, even The Ed Sullivan Show, could not accomplish this. The Smothers Brothers possessed access no one else had. It felt like a monumental shift. Music was evolving. Television was transforming as well. In 1967, another pivotal moment transpired on the same program. Pete Seeger was invited to sing. 4 years, Seeger had been prohibited from television. The blacklist had excluded him from the airwaves for nearly 17 years. When he finally sang Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, it was a direct critique of President Johnson's Vietnam policy. CBS excised the song before its September 1967 airing. Tom Smothers refused to remain silent. He ensured the story reached the press. Public outrage compelled CBS to permit Seeger's return. On February 25, 1968, millions finally witnessed him sing the song uncensored. This marked the first instance a blacklisted artist had so explicitly challenged a president. It was a potent moment demonstrating protest music could surmount barriers. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour also provided a platform for bands others would not approach. From 1967 to 1969, The Who, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Buffalo Springfield, and Steppenwolf all performed. These were not cautious selections for mainstream TV. The Who concluded one performance by demolishing their instruments and detonating explosives within Keith Moon's drum kit. The noise impaired Pete Townshend's hearing and propelled shrapnel airborne. The Doors performed Touch Me with a full orchestra. Jefferson Airplane sang Crown of Creation, a song concerning the dread of nuclear war. Buffalo Springfield played For What It's Worth, and Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild injected raw energy into American households. The Smothers Brothers were indifferent to network alarm. They desired to provide these rebellious voices a forum. That ethos was acknowledged by certain rock titans. On April 26, 1969, at the Los Angeles Forum, Jimi Hendrix paused before a song and dedicated his performance to the Smothers Brothers. He hailed them as heroes for permitting art and protest to coexist on television. Hendrix was at his career zenith. The show had just been canceled by CBS for excessive controversy, but Hendrix remembered. On that stage, he informed everyone the Smothers Brothers were significant. Music and comedy had never amalgamated so flawlessly, and they achieved it with humor also. A prime example was a recurring segment titled Share a Little Tea with Goldie. Lee French portrayed Goldie O'Keefe, a spaced-out hippie dispensing amusing advice laden with double entendres. Tea was code for marijuana. Goldie's name was originally Goldie Keefe, slang for cannabis. The censors mandated a change, but most home viewers comprehended the subtext. Goldie discussed roaches, and none mistook it for insects. Younger viewers cherished the joke because it felt like the show was winking at them. Despite network surveillance, Goldie became a cult favorite. Keith Moon was never known for restraint. On September 17, 1967, when The Who performed on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, he resolved to exceed even his own norms. The band was present to play My Generation, and Moon had a surprise prepared. He had clandestinely packed his kick drum with explosives, far exceeding any agreed amount. Even his bandmates were oblivious to the impending spectacle. Moon sought the ultimate finale, loud, unforgettable, and wild. During the song's climax, the explosives detonated with a deafening roar. Smoke and debris engulfed the stage. A cymbal fragment struck Moon, hurling him backward. Pete Townshend's hair was singed and disheveled. The force was so intense it inflicted permanent hearing damage on Townshend. The cacophony was so profound it stunned the audience into silence before they erupted into screams and applause. Moon had engineered chaos and spectacle precisely as intended, but the cost was severe. Townshend would lose nearly 90% of his hearing in one ear. The ensuing tinnitus was agonizing and perpetual. Years later, Townshend still referenced the constant distress and how guitar playing became more challenging due to the injury. It was an unforgettable moment for all involved, one that permanently altered their performance approach. And then came the guitar. Amid the smoke and bedlam, Townshend seized Tom Smothers' acoustic guitar and shattered it on stage. Smothers merely gaped at him, too astonished to speak. It felt like the ideal conclusion to the pandemonium, a loud, defiant instant epitomizing The Who's essence. They were transcending boundaries none had previously dared to approach. That explosion and the demolished guitar did more than generate headlines. They became embedded in rock history. Younger fans revered it. Older generations were scandalized. The show had given America something raw, rebellious, and genuine. Parents detested it. Children perceived it as liberation. It was a definitive generational schism, and precisely what The Who, the Smothers Brothers, and their rebellious audience desired. The performance would be eternally remembered. Joan Baez was also agitating the status quo. She was a folk singer advocating for peace and social justice, a fact widely recognized. Born on January 9, 1941, in Staten Island, New York, she had dedicated her life to championing causes she believed in. By 1967, Baez had already been arrested for protesting, and her songs resonated with those seeking change. When she appeared on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, she wished to dedicate a song to her husband, David Harris, who was facing a 3-year prison sentence for refusing the draft and opposing the Vietnam War. Baez expressed her pride in him on the show, but CBS excised most of her remarks, leaving only an ambiguous introduction before her song. Baez's censored dedication was another indicator of the pressure on CBS. The network feared alienating the government and irate sponsors. President Lyndon B. Johnson himself had complained about the program, allegedly phoning CBS at 3 a.m. to demand they restrain the Smothers Brothers. Nixon subsequently applied even greater pressure for their removal.